You're watching College Football Now. Harrison Graham and James Yoder with you from Chat Sports. The College Football Playoff Committee has released their newest CFP Top 25. So let's break it down. We'll focus a little bit on the top 6, and then we will expand on that as we go. One of the biggest storylines, James, as you guys at home can see what the top 6 ended up being, was what would they do Ohio State, Bama? Ohio State jumps them to get to number 2. And would Michigan or Cincinnati be number 4? Cincinnati becomes the first Group of 5 program to get into the top 4, with Michigan and Notre Dame lurking at 5 and 6. And then of note, Oklahoma State at number 7. But early takeaways on the top 6.
Yeah, I think the top 4 or top 5 is going to take care of itself, with Ohio State, Michigan playing 2 versus number 5 in Ann Arbor. And then in Atlanta, a week from Saturday, is Georgia, Alabama, 1 versus 3. The most intriguing part of these entire rankings, Harrison, to me, is 4 and 6. Can they realistically drop Cincinnati, even no matter what happens in the last 2 games, as long as they don't lose, against a Notre Dame team that they beat in South Bend at Notre Dame Stadium? I think it's one of the more interesting things, because what's better for college football is clearly, I think, Notre Dame being in, but the outrage will be unlike anything we've seen in college football playoff rankings history if it comes down to those 2 teams for the last spot and Notre Dame were to get it over Cincinnati. But we'll see what happens. I mean, I think it's one of the more intriguing things we've seen, frankly, in the college football rankings. Outside of 2014, Harrison, the TCU, Baylor, Ohio State, this one will be the most intriguing to me if they come down to the last spot for those 2 teams.
So let's talk about the game of the week for a moment here, because some of this will handle itself. Michigan, Ohio State. Winners in the driver's seat to make the playoff. Loser, obviously, is eliminated. Buckeyes, 8-point favorites, over-under 65. It's got to be one of the higher over-unders in the history of Michigan, Ohio State. This game will be played in Ann Arbor at high noon, as it always is. And obviously, James, you're the host of the Michigan Football Report. The hype is here. No one thought Michigan would be here this year, but here they are at 10-1, facing the 10-1 Ohio State Buckeyes. Who you got? We'll ask you guys, then we'll talk about this matchup a little bit more. Ohio State, Michigan, type OSU for the Buckeyes, type MICH for the Michigan Wolverines. We're going to make this the pinned comment on today's video. So during this YouTube ad break, scroll on down, answer this question, and then after the YouTube ad break, we're going to hear from James Yoder on his thoughts on Michigan's chances in this game.
Look, Ohio State quarterback Coleridge Stroud has never played a football game, never thrown a football game, passed a football game below 35 degrees. He's from Southern California, come to Ohio State, didn't throw a pass last year, and that's fine. Plenty of players have gone from warm weather their entire life to cold. But it's a factor that goes into this game that you haven't got in the past. I think I'm going to be interested to see if the weather stays where it's supposed to be, which is between 24 to up to maybe like 31, 32, 33. By the end of the game, it'll hit about 35. But at kickoff, it'll be around freezing temperatures. No precipitation right now, so no rain, no snow. We'll see what happens. Aiden Hutchinson, David Ojabo, and this new defensive coordinator at Michigan, Mike McDonald. That's where the game lies. Can you hit Stroud? Can you hit Coleridge Stroud and make him feel the pain in that cold weather, or can't you? If they can, Harrison, it could be just like the last 2 matchups where Ohio State puts 50 or 60 points on the board. If they can hit him a few times and even knock him around, have a snot bubble come out of his nose, Michigan can win this game. If you want more Michigan football news, if you want to see my reaction, the fastest college football post-game show in America coming up on Saturday after the Michigan-Ohio State game, it's youtube.com/Michigan TV. Subscribe. Check out my antics, rants, and raves there.
Let's sprint through the rest of the top 25, and then we'll kind of talk more storylines, more scenarios. Oklahoma State at 7. They are probably the last team that can realistically make the playoff. Maybe one-loss OU gets a miracle if they went out and become a one-loss Big 12 team, a championship team, but we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Baylor at 8, Ole Miss at 9. Great seasons for those, but they're not playoff threats. And then I mentioned Oklahoma at 10. Let's play a little blind resume game here, James. Team A, B, and C. These are all one-loss teams, I've been told. Strength of schedule, strength of record is that top category. Game control is that second category. What is game control? Basically, how often are you in control of the game? It's exactly how it sounds. And then, of course, records against top 25 opponents. Real quick before we reveal, which resume stands out to you?
Look, I have not seen these. I don't know what teams are coming up here, since I'll give you my straight thoughts. Number C clearly has the best resume, but what I'm guessing, because of that top 25 thing, I know who C is going to be because of who their schedule has played. That is a committee slanted ranking because they keep ranking teams in this one conference in the top 25, even though they do not deserve it, and ranking teams from other conferences outside the top 25 when they do.
So let's reveal it. And that, of course, ends up being Alabama. They've snuck Arkansas in the top 25 several times. Mississippi State actually dropped out this week, which maybe is what led Ohio State to jumping Alabama. I actually think this is a good usage of the eye test from the committee to put Ohio State ranked higher. They hammered Michigan State by, 49 points? That's something Alabama doesn't even have close to on their resume. Oklahoma State, the other team on that blind resume. We'll keep this thing going in just a few moments, but first, our sponsor on today's show is BetUS, the best place to make money when you gamble on sports. But it's not gambling if you know what you're doing. Kidding. So, sort of. Hit up me and James on Twitter. We've had great seasons. Chatsports.com/bet. Promo code CHAT125. Put down $100. You get $125 for free. Go bet on some college football games. Go bet on the NFL. It's a lot of fun, and there is money to be had. Again, chatsports.com/bet. Promo code CHAT125. 11 through 25 here as we keep it going. Oregon, Michigan State, they stumble after losses. BYU at 13. Wisconsin going to be in the Big Ten title game coming out of the West at 14. And then Texas A&M at number 15. 16 through 20, only real storyline here, Pitt and Wake Forest, your expected ACC title game. All that has to happen there is Wake winning this week. Utah jumps up to 19 after their win over Oregon. And then 21 through 25, San Diego State, UTSA. Shout out to the undefeated Roadrunners. Clemson is back into the top 25. And then Houston and Arkansas round out this week's College Football Playoff Committee rankings. So go back to school, get the red pen out, grade this week's rankings. I thought they were the best they've done so far because I thought they applied some proper methods this week, which is rare for the committee. So I'd go like B plus, A minus. I don't think you agree with me, though, James.
I was kind of joking. Look, I think Michigan, from a storyline perspective, and the committee wants flexibility here. You know, don't have them ever. If Cincinnati's never in the top 4, then you can't say, well, we pulled them out of the top 4 for arbitrary reasons. So I'm going to go ahead and give them a solid B, Harrison. I think there's probably a case to be made that certain teams should be a spot up or a spot down from where they're at. Maybe I'm being wrong. Maybe it's a B+. But I think they made the one move that made most sense, which is finally ranking Alabama based on their performance on the field. They've struggled in a lot of games. Hell, they almost lost to Florida. And now, although they were up 2 touchdowns late, Arkansas put a touchdown in with, 4 or 5 minutes left, so it looked like a one-score game. Nevertheless, it shouldn't have been that close of a game. Ohio State played a top 7 team and was up 49-0 at halftime. Yep. Alabama needed to get a first down there at the end to run out the clock against an Arkansas team that's lost 4 or 5 games. So I think that's the one thing I would say the committee did right that I was not necessarily expecting, but I thought should happen.
Hey, call me crazy. I still think you could argue Cincinnati, based on results, could be ranked ahead of Alabama. But at least they're in the top 4. This is the current college football playoff map presented by us here at Chat Sports. I think the top 4 teams on your left of your screen, Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, Michigan, they're all in if they win out. I think Cincinnati can actually move into that category based on what happened tonight. I don't see a scenario where they don't get in if they win their last 2 games because one of Michigan and Ohio State is going to be eliminated, so that would clear the path for the Bearcats for sure. And even if Bama beats Georgia and 2 SEC teams get in, what, are they going to jump Oklahoma State over Cincinnati? I guess they could do that. You can't. I still don't believe you can jump Notre Dame over Cincinnati. They can't do anything in their final game to justify that. So I think Cincinnati would also move into the win and in category based on tonight's rankings. But hey, 2 big weeks to go. Rivalry week this week. Championship Saturday next week. It's going to be fascinating to see how it all plays out.
And the way it's all played out, where you have 4 teams of the top 5 are in the Big Ten of the SEC, you basically have your own quarterfinals, right? We're talking about a lot about expanding the playoff. Dan Patrick put out a story a couple days ago that, the committee, they could move to a 12-team as early as next year. Now, that's kind of been debunked over the last day or 2, but nevertheless, you already have a quarterfinal. Ohio State, Michigan, the winner will be in the college football playoff as long as they beat Wisconsin. in that game in Indianapolis a week from Saturday. And then Alabama, Georgia in Atlanta for the SEC title game. Georgia loses, they're still in. If Alabama loses, I seriously hope and doubt that they would be in this college football playoff. Now, Alabama's got Auburn. We know that Auburn has beat Alabama at a clip in the last 15 years.
No one else has.
A higher clip against a college football like elite school than any other program in America, right? You don't see Clemson's rival winning, three out of every 7 years or so, like Auburn has to Alabama. Certainly, Michigan has not beat Ohio State at that rank that level, and Texas hasn't even beat Oklahoma at the level that Auburn has beat Alabama. I don't think it'll happen this year. But Harrison, they've won, I think, 2 of the last 4 games against Alabama. It is not an unlikely occurrence. It happens fairly frequently.
And let's be honest, we watched Bama this year. They can be vulnerable.
They look beatable.
Is Auburn that much worse than Arkansas, who almost beat them last week? I wouldn't say so. Weirder things have happened than Auburn winning this game at home this week. Other games for the teams in the playoff mix, of course, you have Cincinnati at East Carolina. Look, they win that game and beat Houston, who's in the top 25 in the AAC title game. Mm-hmm. I don't see how they're left out. I think they are firmly into the college football playoff. And some might say, well, how about East Carolina this week? That could really hurt their resume. Well, number one, East Carolina is actually above 500 this year. And two, Bama just played New Mexico State last week. So what's the difference?
One thought here on this game. And we can go to this question here in a second. But Cincinnati playing East Carolina the Thanksgiving weekend, that's like the worst nightmare of the committee of all time, that the top 4 teams playing East Carolina Thanksgiving weekend. But who would make the CFP? Hell, who would be more likely to make the CFP in a scenario where Cincinnati stays undefeated and Georgia beats Alabama in the college football playoff? If you think it's undefeated Cincinnati, go ahead and type 0 in the comments, or watching live on Tuesday night as we reveal the college football playoff rankings. If it's 2-loss Alabama, which it certainly could be, the committee always makes exceptions for Ohio State and Alabama. It's been pretty consistent over this committee's history. Go ahead and type 2. Harrison, give me your answer before we take a look at the top 6 again.
I think with Alabama dropping to 3 as we go back to the top 6, I think the answer is Cincinnati. I really do. I think that was part of the thinking to drop Alabama a spot. I think this sends a message to Alabama that, hey, you have to beat Georgia to get in. The only scenario where they get in by losing to Georgia, I think Cincinnati has to lose to keep that door open for Bama. So I think it's when you're in. If you're Bama, if you lose, I think that a team like Cincinnati will and should get in over the Crimson Tide. But one more time to recap the top 6, and we appreciate everybody for joining us for this video. Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Bama 3, Cincinnati 4, Michigan 5. They will face Ohio State this week, and then Notre Dame sitting there at number 6.